Hey, Em. How are you doing, girl? Today is the 4th of March. I just want to say welcome and thanks for being a part of my day. Thank you for being a part of my life. And boy, I tell you, today was a little warmer than normal than it's been, I guess, over the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. It's been raining a lot. And I'm so glad that it was just a smidge warmer here in Lompoc. Why am I glad it's warmer? I'm actually a warm. I love the warmth. I love the heat. And, that's part of the reason I moved to California. I love New Mexico. It's a wonderful place to live. I love the people, the culture, the food. But the fact is, it just got a little bit too cold for me sometimes, particularly in the northern mountains. Taos, Santa Fe, even Albuquerque would get just too cold. Sometimes it would snow in Albuquerque. And I know you're thinking, what's the big deal? A little bit of snow here or there. And you're right. It really wasn't a big deal. But um, I really wanted to live in a place that was warm. I really wanted to live in a place that had palm trees, place that had the ocean. Although the ocean wasn't as big a draw as sunshine. Sunshine is a big deal to me. Now, I know uh, for a lot of people, they get seasonal affective disorder, SAD. Now, I can't say that I ever got SAD in particular, but I think I might have been influenced by it. I did live in Seattle, Washington for a time, and I really struggled in Seattle, Washington for a lot of reasons, I think. But I think partly it had to do with just how little sunshine there was. A lot of the days in Seattle were beautiful, and I'm grateful for all those days. But there were also a lot of days that were dreary and drizzly and cold. I remember being cold a lot in Seattle, particularly during the winter. It's a higher latitude. And I remember the snows when they fell, they covered my car. And there was a time when, in the depth of winter, my car got stuck in the parking lot at the Northridge Mall, which is where I worked. I worked in a lot of different places in Seattle. But one time I was working in the Northridge Mall, and I was working at Successories, which was basically part of Walden Books, at least at the mall. And what that is it's about positive motivation for business and personal motivation. And essentially, it was, posters that were motivational, positive thinking. For me, that's a big deal. I've always been a person who focused on positive thinking and happiness. And I used to do similar work like that in Albuquerque, where I would help sell merchandise relating to sort of motivational um, um, posters and things like that. Well, anyway, the real story here was that it started snowing and it didn't stop snowing for a long time, and my car got stuck. And my car was basically stuck for, I don't know, a couple days, 3, 4 days in the parking lot of the place where I worked because I couldn't. My car at the time was a Nissan 300ZX. It was kind of a sporty car, and it didn't have a lot of traction. It wasn't very good handling in the snow. And I'm so grateful that I never got in any kind of wreck or anything. I was a careful driver, which is great. But I remember it being really cold and it being a hassle to get around town, right? You still have to get around, and I chose the bus, right? So I would use the Washington bus system and the Seattle bus system to get around. And it was great. I love the bus system. But even the bus system really struggled with all the snow and the ice on the ground in the wintertime. I remember being on a bus when it lost traction when going down a hill. And Seattle, it's pretty hilly around there. It's not as hilly as San Francisco, but parts of Seattle are pretty hilly. And I can remember being on a bus where we were just losing traction. We couldn't, I think it was we couldn't make it to the top of a hill. And then I think another one was we slid down partly toward the bottom of a hill. You know, those feelings of sort of being out of control because of the weather, I don't care for them. There's just a point in time when, especially if you're in a car in the wintertime and it's snowing, you just have to sort of accept whatever's going to happen to you as your car flies off the road, right? Or other people fly into you. Not that that's ever happened, but I've come close. I remember in Albuquerque, I was driving in the wintertime and I was making a left-hand turn in an intersection, right? No big deal, right? But it was snowing and the roads were icy. So what happened? Well, I turned left to make just a left in the intersection, and my rear wheels lost grip. I must have accelerated too fast in the middle of the intersection. Anyway, both my rear wheels lost grip. And apparently, they basically swung around. The rear of my vehicle swung around the front of my vehicle. And I did a donut in the middle of the intersection on the green light. Thankfully, I was able to recover and I made it to the end of the intersection, and I made my turn after doing a 180. Actually, it was a 360. After doing a 360 in the middle of the intersection, for me, that doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore for a reason, because I've decided I don't want that to happen anymore. There was another time I was with your mother, Sheila, and we were in her CRV vehicle, her Honda, and we were traveling to Truckee, which is in California in the mountains. And we were driving back from Truckee. It had rained. It had snowed for like a week and a half straight, which is how long we spent in Truckee. I think we might have spent, maybe it was a week in Truckee in a condo there. Actually, it was a beautiful home now that I think about it. Anyway, we were coming back from spending time with family, and I'm not sure if we had chains on the vehicle tires or not. I think we might have had chains, but despite having chains, there was still a risk that we would lose control. And even though I was driving extremely slow, I slid off the highway a little bit. The front of the vehicle made a right-hand turn inadvertently, and we were going very slowly, inching really, and the vehicle hit the side of the mountain, sort of the inside of the mountain. As we were making a turn, the vehicle sort of hit the mountain, and it hit the bumper, and we were going so slow anyway that nothing happened. There was no damage to the car. But just as we were sort of sideways, perpendicular to the travel of road, uphill, going in our same direction that we were going, was a semi truck. And the semi truck had to veer off to the left to avoid us, and then drifted back into the correct lane, drifting right after they passed us. But it was at that point where I recognized that, that semi-truck, there was a distinct and real possibility that the semi-truck will not have been able to correct and avoid us, because we were sort of stuck. We were stopped. We had, had a minor touch of the bumper against the mountain, and there was nothing. We weren't going anywhere. But what my point is that the semi truck really could have just T-boned us. And here's the thing that concerned me the most is that at the time, Emily, you were in your mother's belly. Well, in her womb, uh, developing. You were um, a fetus, right? And if anything would have happened to you or to your mother at the time because of that sliding on ice event, I mean, I would have been crushed. So emotionally crushed. So anyway, I'm putting an end to driving in snow on purpose by intentionally living in a place that doesn't, where there is no snow. If it snowed here in Lompoc, I would give a lot of consideration to moving to a place that didn't snow, like maybe Palm Springs or San Diego or Los Angeles. I mean, I love those places. I'd be happy to move. I wouldn't have any qualms about moving. I'm just done with the snow. I'm just done with it. I grew up in an environment where it got really cold. I mean, really cold. I lived at an altitude of 7,000 feet. And during the wintertime, it was great. There were tourists who would come in and ski at Taos Ski Valley. It was really wonderful. It was like a winter wonderland. But you know what? It got cold. In fact, it got really cold sometimes. Sometimes the temperatures were, -7 or -10. That was just the way it was. Today with global warming, climate change, I don't know if it gets that cold anymore. But I remember it getting really cold. I remember icicles and feet of snow. And so not only did it get cold, as a kid, I enjoyed the cold, right? I was able to make snowmen and I went skiing, and I really enjoyed a lot of what I did in coping with the winters in Taos, New Mexico. But I remember sort of getting cabin fever in the sense that I wanted to go outside and play, but couldn't because it was too cold. I mean, often I would go outside, but it was a struggle, you know. And the wintertime, you had to have, an entire set of clothing devoted to keeping you warm, right? Multiple jackets, thermal underwear, boots that were waterproof, gloves, hats. I mean, really, sweaters. The list was endless, right? And I don't know how I grew up with with my parents had 6 kids. And so how they funded and paid for all the extra clothing, the winter clothing, I don't know how they did it. But hey, that was great stuff. But you know what? If I had the ability to choose not to have that happen, yeah. Yeah, wouldn't necessarily want to be in places where it was really cold. Here's another thing. Taos, New Mexico, a beautiful place. At the time was it didn't have a lot of asphalt and concrete roads. A lot of the roads were dirt roads. And hey, that's just the way Taos was and probably is in large part. But back then there were a lot of dirt roads. And what happens when it snows is that the snow melts when it gets a little bit warmer, right? And that's fine. That's great. But what happens is all that water just doesn't disappear. It gets absorbed into the land, into the ground, and those roads basically become mud bogs. And everything is dirty. Taos, I have vivid memories of Taos, just so muddy and sloppy, dirty. I mean, the whole city is just mud and muck everywhere. And hey, I mean, that's a quaint aspect of living in a small town with lots of dirt roads. But the reality is that people get stuck. I mean, they can't make it out of their driveway. They end up falling off the roads, falling into ditches. Their vehicles fell into ditches. I remember my dad, he was a general contractor, right? And that means he built buildings. He built homes and buildings. And so he had capital equipment lying around. For example, on our property, he had a backhoe. And I can remember my dad taking the backhoe and like essentially grading uh, our driveway. And also, you know, basically conditioning the road so that our vehicle could drive on the muddy road, right? And then our vehicles would get stuck. And I remember, yeah, it's kind of iffy sometimes whether you're going to make it to the grocery store or not because the roads are a dirt road. So, anyway, uh, long story short, I just came to the conclusion, I want to live in a place that's warm. I love the warmth. I love this idea during the summertime, at least where I'm living, where every day is just beautiful and I can choose to do whatever I want any day of the year. Like if I wanted to go swimming in the ocean or in a swimming pool, I could do it any day of the year. If I wanted to go hiking any day of the year, I could do that. You know, that's not entirely possible in a lot of places that are cold, like in Taos. You know, there might be 2 feet of snow outdoors. And what are you going to do? You're going to spend a lot of time at home and you're not going to go for that hike. You're going to choose not to go for that bicycle ride. You're not going to go out and play volleyball or hang out at the park. Why? Because it's too cold. So anyway, I made a decision early on that I want to live in some kind of paradise. Now, I would love to live in a place like Hawaii or some Pacific island somewhere. I mean, that would be super ideal. I really like the warm climates. I guess that's my point. So I'm really happy to live in a place where it basically never snows. We do get hail sometimes, and these hailstorms last for like 3 minutes. Maybe they last for 5 minutes and then the hail is gone. That's basically the most excitement we get here in terms of weather here in Lompoc. And I'm totally okay with that. That's the plan. That's the plan. So anyway, I've been enjoying how the weather has been turning a little bit warmer. I've been noticing, anytime the highs get into like the 60s, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, as opposed to the 50 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, I'm satisfied. That's great. Mid 60s, couldn't ask for more. Well, maybe I could ask for mid 70s, but mid 70s, that's the norm around here. Man, that's great. Loving it. Could I deal with it being a little bit warmer? Yeah, I could. Who knows? Maybe San Diego is in my future somewhere, sometime, or maybe not. Maybe it's one of those small towns between here and San Diego. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, my point is that I really like the weather here. I really like it. Just my style. And it's been looking nice lately. The days have been getting longer. I've been noticing the sun is up earlier and there's a lot of sunlight in the mornings. And not only that, but the days are getting longer. The evenings, they're brighter. And I'm just so glad about that. Sometimes I do occasionally fantasize about living in a place around the equator where every day is the same length all year round. I would kind of like that. That would be okay with me. This changing of the daylight and the daylight savings time stuff, that's stuff that Only people at high latitudes do. People at the equator don't give it any thought. The clock is always the same. I like that. I like that. I think weather is important. Weather's important. It can definitely determine quality of life. I think it goes a long way toward determining quality of life. There's some places on the earth where maybe it's warm, but it rains a lot. That could be a problem. I've never really lived in a climate where I experienced, say, severe monsoons every year and say it rains continuously for a month and things like that. But I can imagine it could be a problem. And, if I had the means, I might decide to live in a different place because of severe monsoons like that. Anyway, that's weather. Human beings, our lives are dependent on the weather. And, I imagine a time when human beings, we manage our own weather. We take control of it, that we become masters of the weather in every spot on earth. I fully expect that'll happen. Human beings are masters at controlling their environment. In fact, we control our environment so severely that we manufacture entire cities, megalopolises, that we basically turn the earth into our own environment. Whatever environment suits us, we control the environment. We take steps to control it, and we do a very good job of it. Think about our homes. In our homes, we've got heaters and thermostats, which keep the temperature of our homes constant. And in fact, there are very sophisticated air conditioning systems where even the humidity is controlled in people's homes. We've got special and elaborate filters like HEPA filters to filter the air. In fact, we do the same thing with foods. All of our inputs for energy, we highly control those inputs. Just as we control our environment, and eventually the earth will be under that level of control, I'm certain, where human beings will be able to engineer rainstorms any place on the earth at any time. I mean, I'm certain that time is coming. We haven't figured it out yet, but if we ever did, we would take total control of it. Absolutely. When it comes to things like global warming and climate change, uncontrolled changes in our environment are things that human beings will not tolerate. And we've got the brain power to figure out ways to change this problem with carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. We are definitely going to figure out a way around that problem. And really, I think we're going to do it probably within 30 years. We are just that good. We are going to terraform our planet Earth. Absolutely. Why? Because there's something about human beings. We control our environment to the nth degree. And it's getting even, I don't know if you've noticed some of the Internet of Things products that are coming out these days, where there are thermometers and thermostats that are connected to the internet, and people are controlling the temperature of their home, say from an app, a mobile app that they are using at work, when they're not even at home. Today, using Google Home, there are special devices that manage the levels of lighting, even the color of the lamps that are in our homes. We manage those environments, the lighting environment, the sound environment. Yeah, it's one of the strengths of human beings. One of our strengths is controlling our environment. And, as every day goes by, we become more and more disciplined when it comes to controlling our environment. You know, I mean, just think about food. Our food environment is highly controlled. If you think about obesity, the obesity epidemic, sure, there are actually parts of it that we haven't figured out yet. Actually, a lot of people haven't figured it out. I have figured it out. But there are a lot of people who have not figured out the obesity problem yet. By the way, I have figured it out. uh, and so the problem of food environment. And but I'll tell you what, people are really shaking up the system, and veganism, vegetarianism, keto, low carb, raw food, 80-10-10, people are fooling with their food environments. We got corporations who are fooling with the food environment when it comes to merchandising and marketing. And I mean, that's totally changing. Amazon is going to change the way food is sold in grocery stores. So many aspects of the food environment are changing right now. Food scientists are changing the foods that we're eating. We've got the Impossible Burger now, which is essentially a burger made of pea protein as a food substitute. Our food environment is changing drastically right now. Right now, it's just full blown change in the food environment. And that's wonderful. That's what human beings do. We're also changing our social environment like crazy. We've got all kinds of social engineering experiments. Software and programs and apps like Facebook and YouTube. Our social environments are drastically changing. Nobody's getting married anymore. Nobody's having kids anymore. As human beings, we are changing our social environment now. Human beings, we change our environment, our physical environment, our social environment, our food environment. These environments are being tweaked. And even our political environment is changing. There are political earthquakes going on right now about what kind of political I don't even have to go into it. It's really rocking the boat. And human beings are wresting control of these environments. Political, social. And you know what? That's just what we do. We do it. And people are changing their internal environments too when it comes to their own bodies, their microbiomes, right? Even the strains of bacteria that are present in people's guts and in their throats and in their mouths. There's on their skin. I mean, we're changing all kinds of things right now all the time. It's an exciting time to be alive. And it's as a result of something that human beings do very well, and that is we control our environment. And we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we quickly gain control of these environments that, we've been doing it for years. If you just think about the Native American Indian, right? Somehow Native Americans were able to survive without indoor plumbing and indoor heating. How do the Native Americans do it? And it's not just them, but it's also the Inuit, right? The Eskimo people who live in the Arctic. Somehow they manage their environments enough to live in those environments. It's just what human beings do. We also live in the desert. There are people who live near the Sahara Desert, like in Egypt, and they thrive. They thrive in these really harsh environments. It's just what we do as human beings. It's our gift. We have these huge brains, and Really, it's all about environmental engineering. We're kind of like ants. Ants and beavers, right? I think of beavers and ants. Ants, they create these extremely elaborate nests, which are underground, and they're continuously working to develop these nests, bringing in organic matter. Uh, these ants are continuously working to change their environment. Beavers do the same thing. They're continuously working to dam up streams and build their homes around them. Bees change their environment. Well, I don't know if they change their environment, but they've got hives where they are continuously working on their homes. Birds, sparrows, for example, they are always hunting for mud and sources of, I don't know how sparrows make their homes, but they are continuously using their environment to create homes for their children, for their offspring, for their mates. It's just what animals do. We manage our environments. So here's the thing. I'm actually not too concerned about climate change and global warming. Or at least I am concerned when it comes to the fact that we're in the midst of the sixth of the mass extinction, the sixth mass extinction on the planet. I'm definitely concerned about that. What I'm not concerned about is the idea. I'm not concerned about whether human beings will wrest control of our environment, because we will. We will change every part of our society until we get our external environment under control. Whether it's driving new cars, or not using straws, or using photovoltaic power. I don't know what human beings are going to do. Maybe we'll use nuclear power, or geothermal, or hydroelectric, or gas. I don't know what we're going to do. What mix of. But eventually, we will figure out a way, and all of the people on the planet will do it to manage our environment. Why? We that's just what we do. I'm serious. We are good at it. We will survive and thrive in however the environment changes. So anyway, that is an optimistic message that I have for you, Emily. I mean, the fact that I'm living in a place where it never snows, combined with the idea about, I was really just acknowledging the fact that I'm partial to sunny climates. That's all it takes. And people just change their lives to change their environment. It's funny. Anyway, I can move on to another subject area. So I had an amazing victory today. I had so many victories today. I can't even calculate them, but one major victory today. In fact, you know what? I might just spend a lot of time talking about my major victories every day. So today I had a major victory. Pound cake. Pound cake. That's right. It comes in the form of pound cake. So I've had a hankering for eating pound cake. And so I'm cooking a lot of desserts lately. And I've actually looked for in 5 or 6 grocery stores for basically pound cake in a box mix, right? Box mixes of pound cake. Why? I don't know. I have a real deep desire to eat pound cake right now. And I found it today at the Albertsons. It's been on my mind for weeks. This desire, this need to eat pound cake. And finally I found a cake box mix, a cake mix box. That was it. I don't know why pound cake is just not in places. Like, it's not sold in stores very much. I don't know what. Maybe it just happens. I don't know, maybe it's seasonal. I don't know. Anyway, I had a real problem finding sources for pound cake, but I finally got one. Whew. Another thing happened today. Another amazing thing. Peanut butter frosting. I've been on this kick with peanut butter for the last couple weeks, and having a peanut butter, basically having a cake frosted with peanut butter frosting, is something that's interesting to me now. And I found it. I found some peanut butter frosting. I found two varieties. I bought them both, of course. So I'm excited about that. I also have been exploring the idea of making my own peanut butter frosting with confectioner sugar and peanut butter. Yeah. And I might still just do that. Anyway, I wanted to see what was on the shelves already so I can do some taste testing. So I can have, even if I prepare my peanut butter frosting myself, it would be nice to have something to compare it to, right? Anyway, I'm excited about that, acquiring some peanut butter frosting. Here's the thing about the peanut butter frosting. So the fact is I do a lot of baking of desserts, which I enjoy very much. And I don't own a hand blender. I know I don't own a hand blender. The fact is my kitchen is small. I mean, I could afford a hand blender, but where am I going to put it? That's the real problem. Where am I going to put my hand blender? And I didn't necessarily want to buy another gadget. For hundreds of years, people didn't use blenders. They basically just stirred the food in the pots that they were preparing their food in. But I must admit, there are some preparations that almost require a blender. And I was actually thinking that maybe peanut butter frosting would require a blender. I don't know. Why? Because I want it to be puffy and airy. That's partly the reason why. So anyway, so that was one major benefit, one awesome thing that happened today. Here's another awesome thing that happened today. Okay, I went to the gym today, like I do every weekday, because I work out 5 days a week. I had an amazing workout today. Amazing. And what I mean by amazing is that I made real progress in terms of hitting personal records. I mean, I ran faster than I ever have for the longest time that I ever have. I do Jacob's Ladder, which is a sort of a ladder mill. There's a stair mill and a tread mill, and then there's a ladder mill. Basically, I climb a never-ending ladder, and it's great. This exercise is wonderful because it's very low impact and it burns huge calories, man. And when it comes to sort of my level of perceived exertion, that's rather low. I don't think that I'm exerting very much, but I'll tell you what, I'm burning up those calories. So I was on Jacob's Ladder longer today than I've ever been on Jacob's Ladder. So amazing. So that's another PR. And then I did another PR on the leg press machine. Leg pressing more weight than I've ever leg pressed before. So come on, man. Had a fantastic day at the gym. Sometimes I'm a little suspicious about my performance at the gym because I wonder, what is it that explains these good days that I have at the gym? Some days I just have wonderful days where I work out, I feel great during the workout, I feel strong, energetic, I hit PRs, and I wonder why? Why did I hit a PR? And this morning, actually for lunch today, I ate a beet. No, actually, I ate beets, red beets that are canned. I love beets, by the way. I'm a big beet fan, so I'm eating beets all the time, really. I probably eat beets 2 or 3 times a week. Why? They taste great. There's just something about beets that I really like. I like their texture. I like their flavor. I eat beets with no seasoning on the beets. No salt, no sugar, no acid. Just plain beet. You can't beat beets, man. So I'm a big beet fan, and I know that beets are an important and large source of nitrates. So I'm guessing that these additional nitrates are helping my workout be just that much more enjoyable and helping me hit PRs. So that's great because I already eat a lot of beets. How exciting is that? So anyway, I a lot of good things have been happening lately. First the pound cake, then the peanut butter frosting, and now just a great workout. Just a phenomenal workout. Oh, I got more good news. In fact, my whole day is just good news, good news-orama. So I got my taxes done today. Whew. So glad I got my taxes done. It's great. It's early March, which in my mind is really early. If I can get my taxes done by the end of February, I'm a happy camper. Really, here's the thing. You really can't get your taxes done until February, till February 1st at the earliest, because a lot of vendors, a lot of banks, they don't distribute the tax data until early March. Until late March, early February. So anyway, somehow I got it all together, and I got my taxes done in record time. I give myself that 30 days window. True, today is the 4th of March. And so I was a little bit late, even according to my own standards. I like to get it done by the end of February. Taxes aren't due until like mid-April, April 15th. So anyway, so pleased to get that out of the way. It's sort of like this task of doing your taxes just for me just sort of hovers over me. It's like, when am I going to get it done? There are people who are enthusiastic when it comes to taxation. They love thinking about it. They love feeling empowered by knowing about the tax code, and they want to, I guess, save money when it comes to filing their taxes, and so they do a lot of that work themselves. For me, fact is, I delegate it to someone else. I have a tax preparer. In my mind, that's the only way to go. The fact is, I just don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about taxes. Now I recognize the importance of them. Very important. It's how you maintain a nation, right? You need to fund it somehow. I accept that. And I fully accept that I don't want to learn very much about the rules that are necessary to make that happen. The rules change all the time. They change every year. And I'm not invested in what rules ought to be in the books and what rules ought not to be in the books. Honestly, I don't care. Hey, I know there's going to be a part of my salary that goes to taxes. Hey, that's great. There's this sense of equality and fairness, right, where everyone's working within the rules. Hey, that's fantastic. What a wonderful game to play. Be happy to do that. Am I going to spend hours and hours poring over tax information, thinking about strategies for lowering my tax exposure? It's probably going to bite me in the end, but just not interested in it. There's so many things that are interesting in the world, right? I'm a physicist, so for me, it's about science, nature, biology, right? Bacteria, viruses, even health technology. New technologies, artificial intelligence, you name it. This is interesting stuff out there. Not only that, I have an interest in psychology. I love thinking about relationships and empathy and um, things having to do with relationships, relationship skills, communication skills. Love that stuff. Thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, brainstorming, you name it. I love it as it relates to psychology. All that stuff is a lot more important than taxes, in my opinion. Not more, I shouldn't say more important. It's just more interesting in my mind. I have more interest than in watching YouTube videos than I do in preparing my taxes right. No, I want them to be prepared right, of course. And that's why I ask professionals to prepare them. So I have a very strong interest in doing it right. I want to do it right. I have a sincere intent, desire to do them correctly. And I also have zero interest in learning the rules. Well, I shouldn't say I have zero interest. I have some passing interest in the whole project, but it's not something I think about. You know what I've been thinking about lately? Drawing with my iPad and learning Procreate. Procreate is an Apple app. And I've also been interested in editing and creating movies using iMovie. iMovie for iOS. So this is stuff that's interesting to me. Drawing, making movies, reading books. I'm reading Call of the Wild by Jack London, and then I'll be reading White Fang by Jack London. I'm reading a lot of Jack London. I'm really enjoying his writing. I must say, though, that there are parts of his writing that I admire very much, but there are also parts of his writing that I think are rather weak. His story making ability is not as developed and refined as, say, a J.K. Rowling. What's great about Jack London is he's great with words. He's very literate. He's very expressive. He does a great job creating a mood, creating a setting. But story is not his strong point. Character development, again, in my opinion, not a strong point necessarily. But certainly not as strong as J.K. Rowling, who's a very gifted author. But Jack London is gifted in his own way. He does create through poetic language, through romantic language, this environment, and that I can really appreciate. The logic, the underlying foundational logic of the environment, I'm not so sure about it, but I sure do like reading Jack London's writing. It's very satisfying. I get a feeling that he knows how to say it. I love that. So yeah, I've been reading Call of the Wild by Jack London. I'm starting another book. I know. I'm starting a book club, in fact, with the help of my friends. We're going to be reading books about relationships and self-development, self-growth. And we're getting together next week sometime. So that's good news. Oh, wow. I've got also another group that I'm connecting with. Oh, not only tomorrow. So here's the thing. I am a rather social person. I enjoy social interaction. I I kind of like to think of myself as being a mild-mannered conversationalist. I just love it. I love talking to people. I love learning about them. I'm curious about what they have to say. I want to know what they have to say. And I love being around people. And so that takes a lot of time. Being around people takes time. Um, so just in the next week, I'm getting together with 3 groups of people. I know. I'm going to have to start preparing for my visits with these 3 sets of people in the next, 4 or 5 days. So anyway, I want to touch a little bit on something I said about me and my interest in people. There are people who are extroverts and introverts. I I count myself as being both. I can definitely satisfy my own needs as an introvert, but being with people certainly has a place in my heart too. And I can really play both ends of the line depending on how I feel. So, but the point I want to make is that I was talking today to a friend of mine who doesn't like crowds. He doesn't care for them. He doesn't really like crowds of people. Hey, that's completely understandable. But I'm contrasting that sort of attitude or perspective with my own, and that is how I love crowds of people. I seek out crowds of people. And if I could spend nearly all my time amongst crowds of people, I would. I don't get tired of it really. And I kind of wish I had people around me all the time, but I don't. Um, Fact is, I've actually also got lots of interests. I've got a lot of diverse interests. Some of them involve being around people, but a lot of them involve not being around people. Hey, reading, for example, going to school. Um, Although arguably that could be being around people. So anyway, I appreciate and enjoy that part of my life, and that is how willing I am to spend time around lots of people, and how crowds really draw me. The bigger the crowd, the better. Part of me going to amusement parks as often as I do is me liking to be around people all the time. I just like being around people all the time. And so I think that is an aspect of my personality that sets me apart. And Emily, I wanted you to know a little bit about it. I want you to know, like, hey, my dad, he uh, he has an affinity for large groups of people, and he's more than willing. And you know what? I'm also more than willing to do my best and try my hand at social situations which are challenging. In fact, there are some activities that I do just partly because they're socially difficult, and I like challenging myself. That's not to say that I do a good job. Sometimes it's hard to perform in a in social environments that are challenging, and there are social environments that are very challenging. And I have an interest in socially challenging environments and surviving and thriving in them. To me, it brings me confidence, and there's also an aspect of self-discipline. And for me, there's a self-development, self-growth aspect where I challenge myself to walk into a challenging social environment and at least survive it. It helps build my confidence. Well, anyway, I guess I've just rattled off a few things about my day that I've enjoyed and few things about my personality. I'm glad, Emily, that you have been here to witness it, and that these expressions now are ways that you can know me just a little bit better. And I appreciate the opportunity to share those aspects of my personality with you. And I'm kind of curious about what your personality is like sometimes. And if there's ever any chance where you have an interest in letting me know, I'd be more than happy to accept the information. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up here. Emily, I just want to say that thank you for clicking the link and letting yourself learn a little bit more about your dad. I'm really feeling grateful about how well things are going lately for me. And I sincerely hope that things are going well for you as well. I hope your studies are going well. And I hope that you are successful when it comes to performing at your track and field team or with your track and field team. I know there was a competition you had recently last weekend in Thousand Oaks, and I hope you did well. I'm a little bit curious about how you might have performed, just out of curiosity. And actually, what I'm more interested in is I'm curious about your own opinion about how you performed. I'm kind of curious about, your own opinion about the effort that you put forth. What aspects of your performance do you think required skill or bravery? And I'm also kind of interested in what you think you might have learned. Maybe you learned more about your physical body, or you learned about just the wider world in general and how to operate it among your teammates, and coaches and things like that when it comes to organized sports. So I'm kind of curious about what you got out of it, what you learned, what's important to you about the efforts that you put forward in your training and in your competition on the track and field team that you're with. Hey, guess what? St. Patrick's Day is coming up soon. It's the 4th of March today. And I think St. Patrick's Day is the 15th of March or something like that. So, hey, Google, what day is St. Patrick's Day in 2019?
St. Patrick's Day is on Sunday, March 17th, 2019.
So it's March 17th. I wonder how they decide what day St. Patrick's Day is going to fall on. I have no idea. So the 17th, huh? So if today's the 4th, then that means that there's only 13 days until St. Patrick's Day. So that's cool. I actually love these little minor holidays. It's a fun time to be creative. And maybe I'll create some artwork, or maybe I'll listen to some music to get me into the Irish mood, right? Anyway, again, like I said earlier, I hope you're doing well. I'm interested in you. I'm curious about your life, curious about your personality, what you find important and meaningful in your life. I want to know. And I should say, I would like to know. Because I want to know more about you. I want to feel more connected to you. And I want to feel a greater sense of partnership and mutuality with you. So anyway, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have a fantastic day today and a fantastic rest of the week. And I'll talk to you later, girl. Bye bye. I love you. Peace.